Hi, and welcome back to another episode of the Haus Media Systems video series. My name is Gabe Tannenhouse. I'm the founder of Haus Media Systems, which is a video and post-production technology consultancy based in upstate New York, although I serve clients from Miami to Texas to California. So, I'm all over. And I thought for today's episode, we could do another AI project. And I didn't really like the cadence. Not that I'm not doing it right now, but there's a lot of like ums and ahs and kind of dead spaces when I was doing it in real time. So I thought instead that I would bang out the project and then come back and do the episode and just talk about what I went through, and I can kind of show you how it worked. So that's what I'm going to do here. I basically wanted to expand on the project I did on day 4, which was just a quick script that would launch FFmpeg and transcode a batch of videos into a different format. So I think I had some MOVs, transcoded them into MP4s. Maybe it was vice versa. I don't quite remember. It doesn't really matter. I wanted to take that a step further today. So what I did was I went to GPT. I'll pull it up right here. And I asked GPT, does Vimeo have an API? And GPT said, yes, Vimeo has an API. So from there, I kind of got the idea that I would figure out a way to hook into Premiere Pro, Adobe Premiere Pro, which is a pretty standard digital video editing system made by Adobe, the people who make Photoshop. I use it all the time. Pretty much everyone I've ever worked with uses it all the time. A lot of people prefer Avid, but that's kind of a personal preference, very subjective in terms of accessibility and cost, and I wouldn't say reliability, but maybe kind of flexibility. Premiere is better, in my opinion. That's all besides the point. I basically wanted to come up with a way to hook into Premiere, hook into the active timeline that you might see in Premiere, and export the video that you are currently working on, right? Assuming that it had been locked, and export it from there, right? Without going through Adobe Media Encoder or, having to choose what kind of output format you wanted, things like that. It would all be dialed in kind of beforehand. So then I wanted to take that export automatically and upload it to Vimeo, to my Vimeo account. And I was able to do that in about, I want to say, 4 hours. It took longer than that, but I had to stop a bunch. I had some stuff going on around the house, had some people over for dinner, walking the dogs every few hours. But I think all in it was about 4 hours. And there's a lot I can do with it from here, but for the purposes of this video, I didn't want to kind of go all in on it. But I did get to a point where I could do that. So the next step after I asked GPT, whether we could go into Vimeo, and I'll see if I can blow this up for you guys. GPT took me through all the things you could do with API, linked me to some documentation. I then captured a picture of some credentials I developed. I said, let's analyze these credentials, and I'd like to make an app that pulls a sequence directly out of Premiere, encodes it into an optimized streaming format, and uploads it into my team library on Vimeo. And then GPT proceeded to kind of build that out conceptually, said a bunch of stuff I didn't really understand, had me do a few commands I didn't really understand, but, ultimately had me make a script. There was actually, interestingly, there was some back and forth around whether or not you could script in Premiere, and this is one of the ways in which AI falls a little bit short. Is GPT thought that I could do my coding directly in Premiere, which would have been awesome, but as it turns out, that's not supported anymore. So we had a little back and forth around that, and then some back and forth around credentials. But we put everything together. We got the credentials figured out, and then we just started going back and forth with this script. This is a Python script that would upload the video to Vimeo once it was generated. And what I ended up doing was using a program called Visual Studio that could still do coding that would impact Premiere. So that was pretty helpful. And then what I ended up doing was taking those two scripts and tying them together with the help of a third script that GPT called a watcher. I don't know if that's standard lingo or not, but basically this script, once it was activated, would watch the outputs folder from the Premiere exports and say, hey, there's a new video there. So what I ended up doing was working through this Visual Studio app. I was able to make the export, right, using Python scripts that I would build in a text file and then execute using terminal. I was able to then take that file, upload it to Vimeo, and tie those two things together so that once the file landed, the upload started. I had to do a little work on the Vimeo side, and at the end of the day, I was able to do that. It wasn't super elegant, and actually by the time I got to the end of it and said, hey, we're working, you can see if we go back to GPT here, you can see there's quite a bit of back and forth between GPT and I, just figuring it out. And this is, there's no real secret to doing this stuff with AI. You just gotta be patient. There's a lot of back and forth. Here's me, posting a bunch of weird outputs from terminal and asking GPT to interpret it for me, and it did. And so we just kept going and kept going. But then what was kind of cool is at the end, GPT came up with some suggestions for how we wanted to move forward. So let's see, I'm going to scroll back up here a little bit. If you'd like to improve or expand the workflow, here are a few suggestions. Add notifications, dynamic file naming, monitor upload status, and app integration. Basically building one single app to run all three of those scripts, which I think would probably be the coolest thing. So I said, let's make it into an app. And then I didn't end up doing this, but I gender GPT. Sorry. So ultimately GPT, came up with a plan and some sample scripts to turn all these things into an app. And I just thought that was pretty fun. And, I think that could be something that would be pretty useful for a post-production manager who's trying to build a more automated workflow, maybe get things posted to Vimeo without giving users access to any of these accounts, to their export server or their Vimeo accounts. So I think that would be a pretty cool tool to have if you had any needs like that. And this is just kind of an example of what I would call like a value proposition. I don't really think there's many people doing this kind of work in the post-production space. And I also don't think that most post-production departments would have this kind of unfettered access to any software developers that happen to work in their company. I think, a day's time for a software dev to kind of hammer through this would be a lot more resource commitment than most, operations people that I know would be comfortable delegating. So, it would be cool to have someone who would partner with you to work that out, which is where I would come in. So if you are a post manager, if you're a company owner or an operations person in a media company, and you'd like to kind of figure out a way to get these kind of custom tools developed, in a fast turnaround and in a way that is sensitive to your specific workflow, you should get in touch with me. Again, my name's Gabe Tannenhaus. I'm the founder of Haus Media Systems, and I would love to make some custom tools for you. You can reach me at info@haus.video. That's HAUS.video. I'm also going to work on some intake functionality on my website, which is haus.video. Again, that's HAUS.video. Or if you want, you can just call me on the phone. My number is 347-770-3453. And that's all I have for today. So we'll see you for tomorrow. This is episode 8 of 100 completing.